Hey guys, this is Sadie and I have been waiting so long to bring you this video. It is my very first collaboration on this channel. Yay! It is a collaboration with Denise from Liquid Color. I'm sure you've seen her channel. It's full of useful reviews and information about wildlife and conservation and just about everything that you could want to know about some kind of combination of animals and watercolor. So you should definitely check her out if you haven't. And today she is going to do a really awesome episode of the Color Spotlight series that I couldn't do because I am not a really big fan of Yellow Ochre, in case you didn't know. But she has tons of Yellow Ochre. She has it totally covered. So just sit back and watch this. It's going to be so much fun. All of her stuff is really entertaining and informative, and I'm so happy to have her here on this channel. I've been waiting so long to do this collaboration. We're both watercolor geeks and we love pigments and reviews and mixing, so it was just like the perfect combination. And not only did we decide to do collaboration, but we're swapping videos. So if you want to see my video, which is about how to paint white in watercolor, hop on over to Denise's channel and you can see it there. And while you're there, check out all of the other goodies. So, okay, enough babbling, let's get to the video.
Hello everyone, this is Denise from Liquid Color, and today I am super excited to be doing a collaboration today with Sadie. This has been a long time in the making, as the two of us have been talking about making some awesomely geeky watercolor videos together since probably around the springtime. First and foremost, I just want to thank Sadie for having me on her channel and for trusting me with her audience, and I am super happy to be here. It has been so much fun working with you over the last couple of months and chatting with you, and I'm really glad we're getting a chance to do this together. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a working artist who has an educational watercolor YouTube channel, and I really enjoy producing watercolor tutorials and reviews for my channel. And when I'm not on YouTube, I am either creating exclusive content for my Patreon, working on my own paintings, working on commissions, or vending somewhere in my local community. Before I was an artist full-time, I was a zoo educator, so my passion in everything that I paint and do and am are animals and nature, and so that is what my artwork primarily focuses on. As for this video, I really love for my collaborations to be unique with each and every content creator that I work with, and we both thought long and hard about how we wanted to approach doing a collaboration together. Eventually we decided to focus on color since we both absolutely love color, and this time we have the added twist of guest starring on each other's channels. I also have to add how excited I am for this topic in particular, because not only do I get to work with Sadie, but I also get to sneak in another stealth episode of my personal favorite former series for my own channel, which was the Color Spotlight series. Color Spotlight was an 8-episode mini-series on my channel where I took an in-depth look at some more popular pigments used in watercolor. We explored each color across different brands, how they mix with other watercolors, and eventually I would show them in a demonstrational painting so that all my viewers could see them in action, and that is exactly what we get to do here today. Alright, so great. We decided that we were going to do these color videos for each other's channels, but then we had to decide on what colors we were going to focus on, and that was almost impossible to narrow it down from all of the various options that we had. There are so many options, so many colors that I love. And eventually I landed on the idea of doing Yellow Ochre for a couple of different reasons. The main one of which is that even though Sadie loves yellow, she's not a huge fan of Yellow Ochre and she doesn't use it much in her own paintings. For myself, as a predominantly wildlife-focused painter, I, however, use it all the time and thought that this would make a great opportunity to sway some of you who aren't as big of Yellow Ochre fans to come on over to the not-so-dark but beautifully soft yellow earthy toned side. Alright, so Yellow Ochre is a bit unique in terms of this Color Spotlight series because in all of the other videos we picked one pigment number and focused solely on that one pigment regardless of what its common names fluctuated as. But Yellow Ochre can be made from one of two very similar pigments, PY42 or PY43, and they are both so close and commonly interchangeable that we're going to go ahead and take a look at both of them today. PY42 is a synthetic iron oxide that is light fast and usually opaque, or on the opaque side. The color can range anywhere from a light earthy yellow to a darker, kind of mid-tone grayishy green yellow, and I drastically prefer the lighter, brighter, and less opaque versions of it. PY43, on the other hand, is a natural iron oxide that is light fast, semi-transparent, non-staining, and it can vary in hue just as much as PY42 does. One cool fact that I found out when I was researching yellow ochre is that according to handprint.com, the natural version of the iron oxide, the PY43, is actually one of the most popular colors for over 2 centuries in terms of this yellow earth tone category. That being said, the natural version also is sometimes said to stick to the brushes more than its synthetic cousin, which makes it harder to clean the brushes, and it may actually separate out of a mixture of paint more easily, which will require you to stir up your washes more often on your palette. For instance, if you have like a phthalo green and a yellow ochre and you mix them on your palette, if you let them sit there, they'll eventually kind of separate, and you'll need to remix those if you want them to be mixed when you're going towards your paper. So which color that you use entirely depends on your personal preferences, what you want it to look like, if you want a staining or non-staining color, if you want a more opaque version or a more transparent version. That is all up to you. All of the things that we've actually talked about so far can be a pro or a con depending on your personal style. So go ahead and let us know in the comments below which one you prefer using in your own paintings. Yellow ochre is also somewhat similar to another color called raw sienna, which is made from PBR7, in that they're both relatively light valued yellowish earth tones. A lot of artists see these as very, very similar colors that they'll either pick yellow ochre or raw sienna to use, but usually not both. However, I do see them as not quite interchangeable. I think that there's definitely applications for the yellow ochre and there are separate applications for raw sienna. For me personally, I think that a transparent version of yellow ochre is more versatile, as it is more of a yellow tone. It has more versatility to mixing with reds to make oranges than the warmer, browner cousin of raw sienna made from the PBR7. So I've been chatting here for quite some time. I'm sure you're ready to take a look at these different brands up close, and I have some swatch cards for you to be able to compare them side by side. The first yellow ochre that I ever used was Daniel Smith's older formula using PY42, although they now use PY43. You can see here on the swatch cards that PY42 is a bit more on the yellow side, while the PY43 is admittedly a lot more similar to a raw sienna. In either case, Daniel Smith's versions are both extremely transparent, so when I first started painting with yellow ochre and I heard other people complaining about how dark or muddy or gross it could look in mixes, I just didn't understand what they were talking about because I never encountered that. And then let's fast forward a little bit. I got my YouTube channel, I start using other brands of paint and branching out from my Daniel Smith, and I found Mission Gold and Schmincke. First and foremost, it's important to me that you know that I think very highly of both of these brands of watercolor. However, neither of their yellow ochres, in my personal opinion, are worth a second glance. These two paints are incredibly opaque for watercolor. They feel heavy. They have really strong tinting strengths when you are mixing them with other colors, and they do make these muddy, flat washes. So I'm not a big fan of these two versions of that color. Next up, I have some kind of middle of the road versions in terms of the opacity. The American Journey, the Cotman, and the Rembrandt are all semi-opaque, but they are still easy enough to use in mixes that I don't find them to be problematic while I'm painting. It also does appear that Rembrandt couldn't make up their minds either on which version they liked better, so they used both in their formula, which is just interesting to note when all the other ones are single pigment. The most transparent version that I have is called Raw Sienna Deep rather than Yellow Ochre, but it's still made from PY42. It is from Da Vinci, and it is also notably more granular or textural than all of the other versions that we've looked at, and it's very similar in color to My Merry Blue's True Raw Sienna using a PBR7. Overall, my favorite picks for Yellow Ochre are Daniel Smith's current version using PY43 and Da Vinci's using PY42. On the flip side, my least favorite watercolor, not just Yellow Ochre, but out of any paint that I've ever tried, is Mission Gold's Yellow Ochre number 1, which I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video. This is a paint that uses 3 different pigments to make up their formula, one of which is Yellow Ochre, the other 2 are not, but it is super, super opaque. It is very, very yellow. It doesn't mix well with others. It doesn't play nicely with others, and I personally would just steer clear of this tube at all costs. Once again, I love Mission Gold. I think they're fantastic, but in general, they really miss the mark with a lot of their earth tones, I think. I do have a couple more samples that I wanted to show you that I don't have full swatch cards for, but I do have them on a Daniel Smith dot card. They actually have a shocking number of yellow ochres in their line, including a standard yellow ochre made with PY43, as we've mentioned. The PY42 is now under the name of Mars Yellow, and I really do like this color still. I'm curious to try it. And there are 4 additional transparent versions of PY43, all with slightly different hues, and they're called French Ochre, Burgundy Yellow Ochre, Italian Deep Ochre, and Verona Gold Ochre. Some of which are a lot more difficult to reactivate from a dry state, so just be aware of that when you're looking for paints. I tend to find that the ones with the fancier names are harder to re-wet in general. That's not scientific fact, that's just my personal account of using these paints. Additionally, there are 2 brand new colors from Daniel Smith and Schmincke that are both made from PY42 that are nearly the same hue, and they are very transparent. They are called Raw Sienna Light by Daniel Smith and Transparent Ochre from Schmincke. And finally, I don't want to forget to mention one of my personal favorites is actually a handmade paint from Eve Bolt here on YouTube. She has a little paint shop on Etsy where she makes her handmade watercolors. It's made from PY42, but it's a beautiful golden color instead of the more mellow, laid-back, earthy tones. It's called Spanish Gold Ochre, and I didn't want to leave it out because it's super, super pretty and I love painting with it. Usually for my color spotlights, I will choose one variety of the pigment that we were talking about and I will mix it with other colors so that we can see some unique color combinations. However, since these pigments can vary so much within Yellow Ochre, I'm going to do actually 3 little separate versions. The first one is Da Vinci's Transparent PY42, the second will be Daniel Smith's kind of middle of the road PY43, and the third set will be from the opaque version of PY42 from Schmincke. I'm mixing them all with the same 3 Da Vinci colors, an ultramarine, which is PB29, a phthalo green blue shade, which is PG7, and finally a permanent rose deep, which is PV19. I know you can't see much of my mixing process here, but I do get questions asked a lot about them, and I do have a separate video on my channel that kind of outlines how I go through mixing these 2 colors back and forth to get a wide range of colors if you'd like to check that out. I did want to go ahead and show you a couple of big juicy swatches with lots of water so you can see how the color mixes on the page, and I'm going to be using Daniel Smith's Yellow Ochre because that's the one I'm most familiar with. In the first swatch, I'm mixing it with M. Graham's Transparent Red Iron Oxide. The second one is Sennelier's Raw Umber, followed by Daniel Smith's Neutral Tint, Daniel Smith's Perylene Green, M. Graham's Cobalt Teal, Winsor Newton's Dioxazine Violet, and finally Daniel Smith's Transparent Pyrrole Orange. All in all, I really love the wide variety of soft yellow earth tones that you can get when mixing yellow ochre with these different colors, and my particular favorites are the Cobalt Teal and the Dioxazine Violet. To round out this video, I have a simple little landscape that took me about 20 minutes to paint, and although yellow ochre isn't the predominant visual color here, it's like it doesn't jump out and punch you in the face or anything, it is the basis for nearly everything that I have on the page. The sand dunes are made from yellow ochre with a transparent red iron oxide in different combinations and strengths as we layer towards the shadows. The water is made from cobalt teal, but it fades into that yellow ochre on the shore, and the yellow ochre really offsets the teal nicely to make that blue really pop. The greens are made from a combination of the yellow ochre, a phthalo green, and a perylene green in various concentrations to get the variety of colors there, and the browns of the palm trees are a mix of burnt umber with the yellow ochre. Alright, that will do it for today. I hope that you enjoyed taking a look at yellow ochre, and whether or not you're using it for landscapes, wildlife, skin tones, or urban sketching, I think that yellow ochre can earn a place on nearly any palette. Be sure to let Sade and I know in the comments below what you think of yellow ochre and if you use it on a regular basis. And if you'd like to see more color spotlights, be sure to check out my channel over on Unliquid Color. At very least, make sure you head on over there to watch Sade's video that she did for my viewers. I absolutely love being able to blend our watercolor communities together, so thank you so much for having me here on the channel, and all of you who are watching, and I will see you around.
So I didn't know about you, but I kind of like yellow ochre a little bit more. No wonder I wasn't a really big fan. My first versions of it were the Winsor Newton Cotton and the Schminke, which are not really the nicest versions, but I really want to get my hands on some of that Daniel Smith yellow ochre. That looks really nice. Do you guys have any yellow ochres that you really like, or any colors that you really like in some brands and that you don't like in other brands? Let us know. And tell me how you liked Denise's video. Did you love it? I loved it. That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!